Welcome, everyone. Today I have Anja here, who is a client of mine who completed our women's program and had an amazing success story. She was dealing with bladder pain, pelvic pain, urinary frequency, urgency, burning, and she's going to share her story, and we're going to learn so much from her. So thank you, Anja, for being here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, tell us about what was going on. Like, what were you experiencing? The symptoms, the sensations. Maybe how did it come about? We'd love to hear
Mm.
how it started.
So, how my story unfolded, it was actually in February this year when I had my gynecologist. I had an appointment, which was just like a normal appointment, nothing special. And a week after that, I experienced like severe pain in my pelvic area that I haven't experienced before. And after that, I started developing extreme bladder pain, pressure, urgency, frequency, burning that was nonstop. And of course, I had all the examinations done. I think I was checked by 5 different gynecologists, 3 different urologists. I did all the swabs, urine cultures, cystoscopy, all the pathology tests. And of course, like the results didn't show anything. I also tried physiotherapy for pelvic floor. I
Just
tried
real quick,
IVS.
that period in which you were
Yeah,
going to 5 gynecologists and doing medical testing, about how long was that period of time?
I think half a year.
Oh, wow. So pretty extensive. And you're assuming, right, you would find something in the body because the symptoms were so strong. And at the time, if you'd like to share, I think it's interesting that you went through medical school. And at the time, were you doing residency?
Yeah, at the time I was applying for my PhD and doing residency, like second year of residency. I'm a pathology resident. So, like the first thing I thought was like something's wrong with my body because in medical school, like if you have a localized problem, of course you're gonna look there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. I mean, most people will think that anyway, but if you're going through that specific form of education, it would probably make it even more clear that that's the focus initially. So after that, you said you went into physiotherapy and go ahead. What else did you try?
So after physiotherapy, I tried IBS. I also bought like a TENS device. I did a lot of stretching. I did yoga. I tried with acupuncture and nothing was really happening. I was searching for some answers on YouTube, on Instagram, like everywhere.
Just real quick, Anya.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, could you paint the picture what a typical day was like, just so we can all understand the severity or even the types of symptoms, how they would present. Maybe someone listening will relate to that part of it.
It was really intense. Like, first of all, because when you're experiencing all those symptoms and all the tests are negative, you really hope like the test will show something. So there's like a lot of anxiety. So when I would wake up in the morning, I would have like severe anxiety, which would last the whole day. I would wake up with bladder pressure, urgency, pain, which accompanied me like throughout the whole day. It was more intense when I was walking, and there was discomfort when I was sitting. And it was so severe, especially during the night, the pain, that I was on medication. I was trying to put on some warm compresses on my bladder. And also, like the urgency and the frequency at some point was so severe that I could not leave the house without a proper plan or where I would go or what I would do, or like I was afraid to drive or like get stuck in traffic because of the urgency and the frequency. So there was a combination of pain, pressure, constant burning with the urgency and the frequency and with my anxiety.
Yeah. And so it was changing the way you were living your life. Like you said, you were not doing certain things that maybe you would normally like to do. You're having to consider, like, is there a bathroom, or how long could I go? Or is there anything else that was greatly affected? Perhaps exercise or sex or other areas of your life?
I mean, everything was affected because I didn't know what was going on. And the only focus was like my symptoms, like throughout the whole day, I would only focus on my symptoms. So even when I was at work, I was not really present. And when I was on a sick leave or like the symptoms got so severe, I would just like be home and Googling stuff and Googling for answers because I didn't know what to do. So I was not socializing. I was not going to the gym. I was not exercising because the pain was so severe. Sometimes I was just like lying in bed with pain and anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah, those are really, really hard days because you have no idea still why this is happening. I
Yeah.
remember myself before I really understood what I know now, it just wasn't clear why it was happening. It wasn't clear how this could even be taking place in the body. And that's really it creates a ton of anxiety, depression as well, makes it hard to even want to live. It's kind of what was going on with me for a while. So luckily you did end up finding some new information. So go ahead. And you said you were Googling, maybe found something on YouTube. What was going on next?
So I came across your program, I think in June. So I bought your program and I started doing like the first 2 weeks. And then we had a call with other women's in the program. And at that time, I took a short vacation because that was like the only time I took off from my symptoms and went to a seaside for a week. And I started reading Alan Gordon's book. And at that time, my all of my symptoms were still present. I just want to be clear on that. And I think what shifted the most for me was, I think, third week of your program, and then combining that with the knowledge of Alan Gordon's book. So when I started to actually like see the symptoms as something that my mind is producing, not something that it's body caused, that like really shifted the perspective for me.
Yeah, that's a huge change. I'm curious also why you chose to do this program because a lot of people see YouTube videos, then
Mhm.
read books. Why did you choose to do that and follow through with that? Like, what was it about either the things that I said in my videos or about the program that called to you?
I think at that time I was just like running out of options because I didn't know what was going on. So I spent thousands of euros on every possible like option or every possible.
Yeah, it's like the most important thing in your life. I get it. And that happened to me
Yeah.
because if you don't have your health, you can't even live life anyway. So like you'll do whatever it takes. But yeah,
So I was not actually like hoping to get relief from my symptoms. I was just trying to, try different things. But when I saw that this might be caused by like my brain, so with that mind body approach, that's something that really like shifted my perspective. And I said, okay, let's give it a try.
yeah. So we move ahead to 2 weeks in or so, 3 weeks in. You had that realization. I think a really big one
Mhm.
moment where it's like, whoa, okay, these are physical symptoms, but
Mhm.
they're not. They don't have physical causes.
Mhm.
And what took place after that realization?
So what was like helping me the most in your program, I think, was building proof. So what what proofs do I have that this is really like mind body syndrome, that this is really TMS? So my symptoms would change, they would shift, they would get worse when I was working, they would get better at night. So that was something that was really, really like helping me. And what was helping me also was when I read the book, The Way Out by Alan Gordon, when he was talking about just not caring about the symptoms. Can we like shift perspective not to care about the symptom? And the day that I was like, okay, the symptom is here, the pain is here, the urgency is here, but okay, it is here, but I don't care. That was the day that I was, I think, 80% symptoms free. And that's something that was like so important for me to have that day because it just was like a proof that I'm moving in the right direction. And this is the approach that I should be taking.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, to get the actual feedback as well, the results. Because some people will come to the realization, I need to stop caring, I need to stop trying so hard. And they stop trying so hard, but still for like the next several days, their symptoms didn't change at all. So I call it crossing the chasm because you're on one side of belief with one side of reality. Currently you still have symptoms, but deep down you know that they don't have physical causes, and I need to just stop worrying so much. And do you think he got to the point where it was just like, whatever, if I pee on myself in public, I do? Or like, to what level of kind of not caring do you think you were able to experience, or that you experience now?
I think that day I was on a vacation, so I didn't care about anything. I didn't have any responsibilities. I was at the seaside, so I could take this approach of not caring and like just saying, let's give it a try and just not care about the symptoms. And the next day, when I was trying again, like not to care, I was trying not to care. So all the symptoms came back. And that was so for another month, I would still experience like the same symptoms. They were not as severe as like 2 months before that, but I would still experience them. So, but then I entered the phase of your program when it's about the emotional release or and going to the root cause. And I remember in August, I was back at work, of course, with symptoms, with bladder pressure, with urgency, frequency, everything. And I was just like looking through a microscope at work. And I had this severe pain and urgency, and like it was so severe, and I had to go like to the bathroom. But I was sitting there, and in that moment I asked myself like, what am I running away from? Like what is it that I am running away from that I need to go now? And then like a thought just like popped into my head like, I don't want to do this. But not in a sense that I don't want to do my job, but in a sense that I don't need to give like 200%. And I came to realization that, yes, I am like a resident. I'm doing this residency. I'm doing pathology, but this is my job. I'm working as a pathologist. I'm working as a resident. This is not me. That's not who I'm defined by. And that realization that I don't need to put pressure on myself because this is not my whole life. This is just my job. It changed everything. So with that realization, I was just like sitting outside of work. I get on a bench and I was just like, oh my God. And after that, my symptoms dropped, I think, by like 60% because I would come at work and I would not care that much. I would still like do my job properly, but I would know this is my job. I don't need to give like my life to it.
Yeah, that's an amazing realization. And I'm so happy that that happened for you, because many people have not even had this realization that they are not something, just because they do it often. We get overly identified with the importance around something. And that was a huge realization. Yeah, it takes the pressure off. It's like, I am this person's husband or this person's wife, or I am a mom or I'm a dad, and I am this job, I am this job. And there's a huge amount of pressure on doing it well, or making sure nothing slips through the cracks ever. And it's okay, like you said, you can still do that work without the importance. Yeah, that's really awesome to hear. Yeah. After that, and I mean, it sounds like that was really big. And at this whole time, are you doing anything each day? Would you say like I was doing some stretches, or I did yoga, or I did like a meditation each day? Or were there any tools that helped you, or was it just kind of random? Tell us about that.
For first half of the year before I like found your program, I tried everything. I had like a busy schedule, and as someone who identifies as like a perfectionist, as like someone who's ambitious, I had schedule for everything, for my stretches, for my appointments, for everything. And when I started your program, I tried to do it from a different perspective. So I stopped trying that much and I was just like focusing on my symptoms, my emotions, how I feel in certain situations, what are they trying to tell me. So no, I didn't have any like routine, or I was not doing stretches or so. I think in July, when I was 2 weeks into your program, I stopped with everything else. I stopped with acupuncture, I stopped with IBS. So from that moment on, I was only doing the mind body work.
When you say mind body work, do you mean just kind of reading the lessons in the program and applying it to your life more so? Maybe even doing like a breath work or a meditation?
Yeah, I was doing your program and reading Alan Gordon's book and doing meditations, and that was all I was doing.
Okay, so you were doing some meditations though at the time. Yeah, I think this was huge that you shared this because many people I help get better do have that type T personality of being a perfectionist, being
Mm.
perfectly scheduled and responsible for everything. And they have the mindset if I set my mind to it, I can do it. I will make it happen,
Mhm.
which is actually part of the problem. So I love that you came into it. You're like, I'm going to do this differently. I'm actually not going to care that much. And the point of the program, like, look, it's basically a guided path with tools and materials, but it takes you deeper into yourself. And there's a coach myself helping you if you have questions or just for some interaction. That's why we have it. That's the point. It's not about like, I have to check every box every day. It's not a
Yeah.
quantifiable progress that you make. Like every day I get 10% better that I complete the program. It doesn't work that way. So I love that you share that. And it's really the way I think about it, it's almost like these root causes, we're trying so hard to avoid them because they would require a letting go of some sort. It could be
Mhm.
you letting go of the identity of Anya being great at everything she does.
Mhm. And
You
sure.
know, getting her PhD, a pathologist or whatever, like all those things. And so it requires a letting go. And for the subconscious, it doesn't really want to do that, or the ego or the conditioned mind, whatever you want to call it. So it kind of does everything it can. If there's an action that you give it, it's like, hey, you do yoga every day and you need to do a meditation and you need to do journaling. You'll do that every day as you walk past the mirror instead of just looking in the mirror and really coming to the core and the truth of what's happening right now. Like, what's this all about? Why is my body tense at work? Or for someone else, why does my body get tense when I'm around my mom? Or why do I feel tension whenever etc. And there's this pattern you can find that is not actually who you are, but it was captured or collected at some point earlier in your life that was probably repeated. And when you find it and you're able to let it go, which is possible, you feel more free, more like yourself than ever before, actually. And your body doesn't have to have that tension response, which allows it to be healthier. It doesn't upregulate your nervous system anymore, which is pretty much the mechanics behind what's happening with these
Yeah.
psychophysiologic disorders.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And I know that that was a big thing, around work. Take us forward even beyond that, because I think it's good to be real. It's not necessarily that someone has a realization, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm symptom free now. There are typically like some ups and downs on this path.
Mhm.
And even for myself, someone might be like, are you symptom free? I don't have chronic issues, but my body can still generate psychophysiologic symptoms. And my body is more likely to generate it if I'm attached to something, if I'm overstressed, overworking myself, etc. So it's a compass that helps me be redirected, you could say. So the idea of not having any type of psychophysiologic symptoms isn't a very natural human experience. But no one needs to have this, or no one really has to have a chronic perpetuation. There's typically something that hasn't been disentangled yet if they're experiencing that. But even after that
So
experience at work, did anything
yeah.
else happen to kind of take
So
us to
after
today?
that, yeah, so after that realization, I think it was kind of, I was taking some pressure off myself. So I still can do a good job, but like I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to do like 200%. Like don't need to invest 200% into everything. So I can take some time on, because before that I was never like taking time off. Even when I was on holidays, I was always doing something, or in the afternoon, I had like all the activities planned. So just by taking some pressure off some things and like going into work with that approach, okay, I just need to do my job. I don't need to be like perfect at it, but I'm going to try my best. That was something that also took off pressure from my symptoms. So they were there even when I was at work, but I didn't care. And when I stopped caring, they were slowly like started going away. I would say in August, I was at 60% or like say 50, 60% of what was at the beginning in February. So the pain was not as severe. I still had bladder pressure, which was like really uncomfortable. The urgency, also the urgency and frequency, but it was not as severe. So in August, me and my partner at the time were moving into an apartment that we were furnishing for a year, and we invested like everything into that apartment. So because of the moving in, I didn't have time to really think about my bladder symptoms. So during that moving period, that was like for a week, my bladder symptoms diminished to, I would say, 20%. So I was like, okay, now that this is amazing. Like my bladder symptoms are diminishing. I'm moving into a new apartment. Like my life is finally making sense. So everything was great. Then we moved in, and a day after movement, I developed like weird rash on my face that was like burning. I got checked by doctors. They didn't find anything. And that after 4 days with a rash, I developed high fever, headache, flu-like symptoms, night sweats. And I just thought like, I have a flu, I have COVID, I have something. But all the tests were negative. Even like the lab tests were negative. So I said, okay, it's just a flu. And then like a week goes by and I started developing like severe muscle pain, like muscle twitches, tingling sensation, numbness, headaches, brain fog, and the weakness in my muscles and the tingling sensations got so severe that I could not get out of my bed. I developed extreme fatigue. My muscles were so weak, I could not stand on my legs. I was actually dragging my right leg like behind me. I could not like lift my right hand. So I didn't know what was going on. I had all these weird neurological symptoms accompanied by fatigue with brain fog, headache. My lungs were hurting. Like it was insane. And like, of course, I got checked by different doctors. I also got MRI of my head. And I was diagnosed at that time by one doctor with neuroborreliosis. I was put on antibiotics again. Another doctor diagnosed me with post-viral syndrome, another one with severe burnout, with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. So I was actually in a week or like 14 days, I was bedridden.
Oh,
So I didn't have bladder symptoms, but now I was in my new apartment and I was bedridden. So I could not like stand on my feet.
that's really severe. Yeah. It completely
Yeah.
shut you down like across the whole body. So luckily you're on your feet and you're alive again. So tell us what happened next.
So like of course the first thought that came in my mind, because I had experience with TMS and mind body syndrome before, and I knew some stuff about the nervous system. So I said to myself, okay, if I manage to, get rid of my bladder symptoms, like I also have the opportunity to change this. So besides your program, I started doing another program, which was more focused on somatic approaches. So I started doing that, and my symptoms were kind of getting better. Like I could stand on my feet. I could do like a short walk. but I was still like, I had severe brain fog, chronic fatigue, these muscle twitches, numbness in my hands and legs. So I would say it changed, I don't know, 10, 20%. And at that time, I was moving back and forth from my new apartment to my old home where my parents live because it was just an environment that was more safe for me at that time because I really didn't know what was going on. So for me, it was like better decision to come back home into my old room where I like, felt comfortable. And I remember one day when I came home, my mother said to me, and it was something that really changed the trajectory of my story. My mother said to me, Anja, you don't need to be sick to come home. So with that in mind, like I started doing the same thing and that I was doing with my bladder symptoms. I started to like asking myself, where is this coming from? Why am I experiencing this? What is my body trying to tell me? Where do I feel more comfortable or less comfortable? Like in my new apartment, in relationship with that person, how am I communicating? How am I feeling? So I came to a conclusion, of course, with other things going on in my personal lives. The moving in part was something that was actually not aligned for me. And that the relationship that I was in was not aligned with me. And it was like such a hard realization and such a hard decision because we basically invested everything into this relationship, into an apartment, because we wanted to have family together. And it was the hardest decision I think I had to accept for myself. But in that moment, I knew that I need to do it because I felt that it's something that is not aligned for me. So, end of September, we broke up and I moved back home.
And did your body have any changes after the breakup, or when did you notice some of these symptoms alleviating?
So, in first 2 weeks, some of my symptoms were starting to diminish. I was not doing anything but your program and the other program, but I was focusing more on emotional releases and releasing the root causes. Because when I made that decision, I promised myself, like I said, Anja, if you're going to do this, like do this properly. And I knew it was going to be hard. And I just promised myself, like, whatever happens, whatever arises, I'm going to move through it. So, with that in mind, I was doing like your program and the other program. And the first 2 weeks was my symptoms were diminishing, but my anxiety, my disassociation symptoms, panic attacks were severe because the change was so extreme. I didn't plan to make this change in my life at all. And my anxiety was like over the roof. But then slowly, like I would say after 3 weeks and end of October, I was starting to, get better. I would start smiling again. I would start socializing. My symptoms were diminishing to the point that now, like in November, I'm like, you know, going out, I'm going outdoors, I'm running, I'm going back to the gym, I'm socializing. So I was bedridden in September
Yep.
and now I'm basically living my life again.
That's amazing. Like, just to commend you too, because for anyone who's listening, you've gone through some really difficult times this year. And, that was in February. It's November whenever we're recording this.
Um,
You've gone through some really hard times, but you've had the courage to actually look at the connection of what could be causing it. And sometimes we can sense it, we can feel it, we can know it, but we're still really scared to do anything about it. And you actually did something about it, which is allowing you to be free, which you deserve to be free. Everyone does.
yeah, but I mean, I had to. I didn't have a choice. I just felt like with the disease and me being bedridden, and I just felt like I was suffocating. I think it was the hardest decision of my life, but also like the best decision so far.
What could you tell someone who has already read a book, maybe like The Way Out, or they know
Yeah.
about mind body syndrome and TMS and all of that? And they're like, I get it. I see the connection. Maybe I know what some of my causes even could be. Maybe I don't, but they're still not better. Like their symptoms are still there. Do you have any insight, any guidance to point them towards?
I I mean, I was there. I mean, I was looking at all the success stories and just like wishing I could be there like one day. And I
This is a success story, by the way. So you are here.
yeah, it is. It is, and I'm so happy I'm talking to you. But in those moments when you are, at your rock bottom and you don't know if you're ever gonna climb out of that rock bottom, I think the only thing that was driving me was I know I can get better because other people did get better. I know I can. I don't know when I'm going to be better, but I know I can reach that place. And I just, no matter how hard it was, no matter like if I was in pain or crying the whole day, or I didn't know how my story is going to unfold, I just believe that I will get better.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's amazing. Yeah. You just know it's going to happen. You don't exactly know how or when, but you trust. That's beautiful. Any other final things you'd like to share with whoever is watching us that might be in the middle of something really challenging?
So, what was like the biggest realization for me was with my perfectionism and with my ambitiousness. I was always running towards something, but what was actually like, I was actually running from myself and from the things that I should be looking at. So, I think that was like one of the biggest realization that helped me shift my perspective to look inward, to like ask yourself, what are you running away from? How are you feeling in certain situations? Is it your job? Is it your relationship? Is it something that's bothering you and you don't want to say it loud? In which areas of your life are you not true to yourself? I mean, I know that you're not okay right now, but like I promise you that if you start looking at your root causes, at like what areas in your life are you not happy with, or areas of your life that you're not true to yourself, the story is gonna somehow unfold.
It's going to lead you to a
And
moment.
it really does.
Yeah. It'll lead you to a point where there is courage required. For that courage, you might need
Mhm.
the push of like a coach or a
Yeah.
friend or a success story, even someone like, oh, I heard that happen. And that feels like me. And I know that I can make a change. You need sometimes a little help to have that courage in the face of fear. You can, like, deep down, there's an intuition. When you get quiet enough, that's the thing, Anya. A lot of people don't get quiet enough. They're working all day, they're on their phones all day, like constantly distracting the mind. And if you're always inundated with something up here, it's very difficult to hear what's in the heart and to actually hear their intuition. Like you went on a vacation, you took some time out, you probably would just do nothing sometimes or sit in nature. Like these things were really important in this process. And how are you doing today?
I never thought that I would be in that place. Like if you would say to me like 2 months ago, I'm gonna be here with you, like feeling like myself again, doing this interview, I would not believe you. And what I actually learned about myself with that process is that, like, no matter what the day brings, I just move through it. Like, I just move with the day. So if it brings like good stuff or bad stuff, good emotions, like bad emotions, I'm just like with every experience that the day brings. And when you're able to be with whatever life brings to you, it just gives you this sense of centeredness and calmness and just some, you know, authenticity, integrity. And you feel like yourself because you take your power back.
That's a really powerful truth.
The biggest realization for me was that beneath my symptoms, there is always like something that I am not ready to look at it. Like even beneath my anxiety or beneath my bladder symptoms or other symptoms, that there was always something that I was not ready to look at it. And the beginning, like in February, and for like period of 6 months, I was experiencing severe anxiety every day. But now, for example, when I'm anxious like for 10 minutes because now I know that beneath my anxiety is something that is trying to alert me. You have to look at it. And now I would get anxious and I said, okay, Anja, what's going on? And then I get angry. And I haven't felt anger in, I don't know, 20 years. So I would get angry, and then this anger would transform into sadness and then grief. And then I find myself crying for half an hour, but then I'm okay and I'm not anxious. Where at the beginning, I would start feeling anxiety, and the anxiety was present for the whole day. And now I just like move through the experience that my body is trying to show me or like present to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anya. I'm so happy that you're doing better and that I've been able to help in some way. Anyone who wants to do the program that we have a women's program that Anya did, and it's in the description below. We'd love to help you out and take you on that path as well. And thank you so much, Anya.
Thank you so much, Michael, for everything that you do.
Absolutely. Take care.